And we've already got a copyright. Yeah, we've already got a copyright violation thanks to Keith. This whole stream is a disaster, much like the sport of college football. Welcome, everyone, to Running Out the Clock. Recording here the evening of September 8th, 2019. Streaming live on YouTube, something new we're trying out. We'll see if we enjoy it this week or not. And if we keep doing it, then we encourage you to tune into that. You can find links to our YouTube channel, go into our Facebook page. If you don't like our Facebook page, then what's wrong with you? Anyway, my name is Joseph Craven. I'm joined by three young men who have recently been signed by the New England Patriots: Keith Harkins, Keith Hunter, and Keith Roundland. We're all Keith tonight. This is ROTC Keith edition. Boys, how are we? Everyone good?
I don't know what's happening.
Man, I'm Keith. I'm Keith right now.
I'm very Keith.
I am Keith.
I'm so Keith, but I don't know what's happened. I don't know why. I don't know.
Everyone Keith tonight? Good.
So
Everybody's Keith tonight. Everybody is Keith tonight.
Oh wow, that was
Beautiful.
good and bad
Yep.
all at once.
Oh,
Is
it
that
was
possible?
it was awful.
Yeah.
It was not good.
Let's go ahead and talk about the Knowles because I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, all right, we can do that. We start off this podcast the same time every time we record, except for last week when I forgot for a moment and y'all had to remind me. We start things off by talking about the Knowles. And this week, the Florida State Criminals were able to survive and advance with a very, very minor victory over ULM, Louisiana Monroe, the Warhawks, thanks to a missed extra point by the Warhawks in overtime. Keith, lead us off. Your thoughts on the Knowles?
It's great. I'm so happy right now. Like, I know that they're technically 1-1 on the score sheet and the official records books, but they're 0-2 in our hearts.
Most definitely. We're going to go clockwise based on how we are showing up here on our screen here. So, Ro, you're up next. Your thoughts on the Knowles needing a missed extra point to seal the victory?
What is defense? What is it?
Who needs it?
I don't know. Who needs
Who
it?
needs it?
We didn't see
those
a
are my
whole lot of
thoughts.
that this whole weekend.
Nah. What is it? I don't know
No.
what it is. The
It's
Knowles don't.
It's a lost art in modern college football. Chandler, round us out.
Look, I'm just saying, you guys are criticizing Florida State, but Willie Taggart saw the problem from week one, identified it, and fixed the issue.
Exactly.
Because that was a clearly hydrated football team.
Yep.
That went out there and took the field against Louisiana Monroe because look, and it's such a unique strategy because nobody could have anticipated that Florida in early September would be hot.
Right.
I surely wasn't expecting that. I turned the game on thinking, wow, I was really expecting this to be a snowball game of sorts. That maybe ULM might wear their all whites to have an advantage to blend in with the field. But no, Willie Taggart knew.
He knew.
Willie Taggart knew, and he had his team hydrated.
Some would say they were almost too hydrated. It was almost dangerous levels of hydration.
They were throwing up lots of water.
Well, and you know what? Next week,
Spewing.
Next week, whoever they have coming up, I'm sure they are going to be properly hydrated this time.
Well, we will talk about who they have coming up later on in the episode. But as for now, we'll get back into what it is that we reluctantly talk about every week, the Southeastern Conference, where for some reason it just means
this is
more.
now an ACC podcast.
I'm going to have to remove Keith. Keith is out for a minute. We'll let Keith be reinstated in a second here, but he's going to have to sit in timeout for just a moment. Here.
Give him the tiniest technical.
The tiniest technical there is. All right, another thing we like to do whenever we start. Oh, it moved when I put him back in. It moved him to the end of the clockwise line. So now
I took second place.
Keith gets to go last. Yeah. All right. Another thing we like to do is that if anyone has a someone who deserves some credit in the world of sports this weekend that maybe isn't getting enough credit, we like to nominate them at the beginning of the episode. This is a purely optional thing, so I'll just go clockwise here. Ro, you have anyone that you feel like nominating this week?
I nominate the Patriots and Antonio Brown. I nominate all of that clearly orchestrated.
Ro's now been removed. I'm not playing tonight, gentlemen. Ro's at the end of the line now. Chandler, you're up.
I will say, I did find it funny that with the Antonio Brown thing, the ticker, it was like notable events from Antonio Brown's time with the Raiders, and it was like 12 events, all from within the last like 3 days.
Right. Oh man.
No, I'm gonna give a shout out to Ole Miss offensive lineman Nick Broker, true freshman, after some very, very serious offensive line woes against Memphis. Broker got a lot of snaps and played pretty well. So not bad for a true freshman playing on the offensive line.
All right. True. That's a difficult position to step up into as a true freshman.
He, if I'm not mistaken, he was playing some left tackle as well. So
wow.
That's a tough spot.
That's impressive. Yeah, I feel like the hardest things to step into as a true freshman are like quarterback and offensive line. Like, I mean, if you are like a corner, a safety, like maybe like you have to read things, but a lot of that is reactionary. You know, linebacker, you have to be able to read stuff. But like offensive line and quarterback are next level. So that's impressive. Keith, you got anyone you want to nominate?
Nominate South Carolina head coach Will Muschamp.
Okay.
After the culmination of 7 years of head coaching, was basically poo-pooed on the field in front of us last week against North Carolina. He was not blowing a lead this week, guys. He learned his lesson in beating Charleston Southern 72-10.
Keith, I'm about to put you on warning here for not taking this bit seriously at all, man. No, I'm just kidding.
Speaking of that, though, big shout out to Ryan Helinski, Tyler Helinski's younger brother. Will Muschamp sucks, but that was a cool thing to see him get that start and to play so well, especially after everything their family's been through.
Yeah, I'll say this as we have apparently Purdue is in someone in the background there. I believe that's what Robe predicted last week. He said that Purdue would beat Vanderbilt, or he said that Trains would beat Vanderbilt. This was not who I was originally going to say. And then I was looking around today trying to figure out where this former player ended up. AJ Jefferson, a former Mississippi State defensive end who was one of their key pass rushing players during those 2013 to 16 years, those really good years for Mississippi State where they reached number one, all that sort of stuff. So I'm trying to figure out where he ended up and if he got any chance in the pros. And apparently he, I guess 2017, was spent a little bit of time on the Rams as an undrafted free agent. But then going to his Twitter account shows me that this kid from Summit, Mississippi, relocated himself to Los Angeles when he went to the Rams and everything, and decided to become a Los Angeles police officer and join the LAPD. Wow. So I looked at found his Twitter account, and it's him like graduating from like the academy and joining the LAPD. And that's pretty awesome, I think.
Big shout out.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So not entirely sports, related in that regard, but yeah, a former SEC athlete who took an opportunity to move to a new location and do something that he wanted to do like that. And I think that's pretty neat. So there you go. AJ Jefferson. Good on you, man. All right. Quick run through of some of the scores from last week before we get into we got two major topics we're going to talk about tonight for sure. But here's a few little things. First and foremost, we've got West Virginia exercising some demons after opening weekend. And
good way to put it.
Yeah, and holding another team that desperately needed to hold on to a lead. winning 38-7 and or Missouri winning 38-7 over West Virginia. There we go. I accidentally said West Virginia earlier. Whatever. South Carolina, as Keith mentioned, 72-10 over Charleston Southern. Trains beat Vanderbilt 42-24. Southern Miss and Mississippi State. I just want to point out, I simulated this game on the PlayStation 3 NCAA Football 2014. May it rest in peace. Put it up on our YouTube channel. The simulation predicted that Mississippi State would win 35-13. The final score was 38-15 in real life. So I'm just going to say my simulation is as accurate as you're going to get. Clemson was able to control Texas A&M 24-10. A&M getting a touchdown in the fourth quarter to make that 24-10. It was 24-3 for most of the game. Alabama rolled over New Mexico State 62-10. Georgia did the same to Murray State 63-17. There's, of course, the big talking point we'll get to in a minute. BYU defeating Tennessee 29-26, an overtime victory there. Auburn against Tulane, surprisingly low scoring 24-6, unless you're in the camp that believes Auburn is not any better than they were last year, in which case maybe that's not all that surprising. Florida, UT Martin blanked them 45-0. Florida defense trying to prove a point. You don't really see too many complete shutouts in football anymore these days. It just, like the way modern offenses are, most teams get at least 3 points or one touchdown. So that's impressive, no matter who the opponent is. Kentucky beats Eastern Michigan 38-17. LSU, of course, beats Texas in that thriller 45-38. And last on the list, for some reason, the way it was ordered here, was Ole Miss and Arkansas 31-17. I don't know why, I don't know who put this list together. It's not in chronological order or anything. That's kind of strange. So, all right, there we go. That's the full rundown. We're going to regroup now and get into this BYU and Tennessee mess, because that was one of the biggest headlines from the weekend. I mean, Chandler, what is your gut reaction to seeing this result? Not even necessarily trying to analyze it and see what went wrong. No, what's just your gut reaction when you see that BYU beats Tennessee and Tennessee's sitting here 0-2 after a week one that everyone was just oh, Tennessee's got to shake this off and got to recover from this, and they go out and they lose this next one here?
Tennessee's just not good. I mean, I mean, they're staring at a 1-6 start in the face. And after last week, I thought for sure there's no way that Pruitt survives. I mean, sure he survives this week, and I don't think that they do anything to make a change, before midseason. He's not getting run off now. I mean, maybe if they lose to UT Chattanooga next week, which a week or so ago you thought, well, that's not happening, and now you're like, well, I don't know, maybe.
Probably happening.
Pruitt sucks. I mean, there wasn't anything about him that I thought this is an exciting hire for them at all, other than he worked for Saban, and those guys don't typically seem to work out short of Kirby Smart. And I mean, they're not. They don't look ready. Their lines are bad. Guantanamo Bay, needs to be shut down. It all I don't know, man. It's just I wish I had some sort of gut reaction other than just they're really bad and they're not getting any better.
Right. I mean,
because they're 2/3 of the way through the easy part of their schedule, and they've lost both games.
Yeah, I mean, there doesn't have to be anything more complex than that necessarily.
Right. But I mean, you've got UT Chattanooga next week, and then it's Florida, Georgia, Mississippi State, and Auburn maybe, or Texas A&M. It's gonna get a whole lot. Alabama, that's right. Yeah.
Ouch.
Whoops. It's gonna get a whole lot worse on Rocky Top before it gets better, and I don't think it gets better under Pruitt. This is the kind of thing that you lose Like you lose everything over.
Right.
You lose your locker room. You lose your fan base. I mean, because there's no reason. Like Tennessee's not good, but there's no reason that BYU or Georgia State go into Neyland and beat them, other than just a coach who can't do the mental stuff of having his team ready to play.
Yeah, I think he's already lost the players. Honestly,
What makes you say that?
Because if you watch the very last play of the game where BYU wins, it's a goal line situation, and they're literally fighting for their season. And BYU doesn't look particularly impressive on the play. It's just Tennessee's players just sort of stand up and get leaned into and let them walk into the end zone.
So you're saying that, like, from what you were observing, you felt like it was
they gave up.
Like they had given up at that point. Like they were so demoralized by the end of that game that they just said, whatever, give it to them.
Yeah, that play didn't look like a team that was particularly motivated to do anything, even mediocre at that point.
Well, I mean, do you feel like there's any recovering from that, Keith? From where they are right now?
I mean, like, you lose to Georgia State, that's a punch in the gut right out, especially when they feel like they have a chance at competing with the Kentuckys and the Floridas of the East and getting up there into the top three, and then they lose.
Competing with the Kentuckys of the East is such a weird statement. I don't want to gloss over that. Sorry, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah,
I just wanted to point that out.
These were the standings last year.
I know, it's so weird.
Yeah, we're living in the upside down.
I don't understand that reference. Keep talking.
And Will Muschamp is the Demogorgon. So
guess that makes Mac Brown 11.
Yep, sure is, and that's very accurate.
Is that the name of the girl, the young girl from Game of Thrones? Is that who 11 is?
Yeah,
exactly.
She's the queen in the north.
Okay, I was just making sure.
But yeah, so then you have a game against BYU and opportunities to like bounce back and just kind of show that it was a fluke. And Tennessee had a pretty good first quarter, and then just was kind of barely hanging on, and then BYU finally closed the gap, and it just looked like they were like, well, there goes our season, because we can't beat Georgia State and BYU, and we've got Florida, Georgia, Mississippi State, Alabama, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's gross.
Yep.
Well, I mean, Ro, do you see any sort of? I know when we talk about Florida, Georgia, Mississippi State, I mean, more so maybe like Florida, Mississippi State in particular are sitting around. I don't know if Georgia's concerned, but those two teams in particular are sitting around going, man, I hope they keep Jeremy Pruitt until we get a chance to play him. But, I mean, do you see any sort of hope on the horizon for Tennessee, or is this they need to go ahead and accept the fact that Philip Fulmer is their only savior?
Golly, man, the ghost of Philip Fulmer. He is actually alive, and he's their athletic director, and he's doing still a horrible job. Apparently,
living ghost.
Living legend ghost. Yeah,
it's crazy to me. Okay, like I just got to say this part real quick because I was thinking about this today. It's crazy to me that like Tennessee has been 21 years removed from the national title, right? Which I mean it's a significant thing. Like a very, very small percentage of teams ever sniff at that, It's like seriously like less than 10%. I can look it up, but anyway. And so it's cool that they're able to do that, but like 21 years later, have you ever seen a program not capitalize on that like they have? I mean,
I can name one. I can name absolutely one. That university would be the Florida State University, because they're only like 2 or 3 years removed from a national championship, and they are absolute. Like I feel like FSU and Tennessee are like, we're really about to be the worst team in college football. Wait a minute, hold my beer. The other one takes charge of that. Whatever that meme is, it seriously like. Oh, I saw some Twitter post or whatever, like almost immediately after that said from some person that said like maybe Tennessee should consider making football mandatory instead of using volunteers. And I feel like that is a pretty
Literally
accurate-
volunteers at this point in time.
Dude, they just look on the field like, did you see out of all the teams that you probably watched this weekend, was that a football team? They seem so, I don't know, man. Even if they do fire Jeremy Pruitt and they have, some interim takeover, man, the attitude on that team, I mean, it's just so depressing. They're just used to losing. Like, that's what the culture is. So, everybody's got to go. Everybody. No more scholarships. Invest in women's basketball again. If you're a Tennessee fan, that's what you got to do, man. Is there any hope? That was your question for me. Yeah, absolutely not. This is as low as it gets. Last week I saw somebody from Atlanta, one of my friends who lives downtown, text me a picture of someone driving around downtown Atlanta with like the game scores all over the truck, and there's like a screen playing the game. Dude, I'm not even kidding you. That's a low point. That really is. So I don't think it gets any worse. I really don't.
And really, to bring everything full circle, when you said that Florida State, is the team that hasn't capitalized, probably worse than Tennessee, you do remember who Tennessee beat for that national championship in 1998.
Oh, man. Oh, that's right. They beat Florida State.
Oh, yeah. I was going to guess Clemson.
Oh, no.
Oh, well.
No, you would have been wrong.
Thank you, Ro. Thank you.
Yeah. I got you.
Well,
I got all the facts, bro.
I'm gonna put myself in a corner for that joke.
Tennessee, Tennessee, the college football landscape has changed drastically since 1998, and Tennessee seems to be the only people who haven't figured that out yet. I mean, you've seen. I mean, even down to seeing. I mean, I think Ole Miss and Mississippi State are good examples that in 97, 98, 99. Really in the pre-SEC network world, you couldn't have imagined teams like Ole Miss or Mississippi State having success. Well, Mississippi State has become one of the most consistent programs in the SEC West, even if they're not necessarily title contenders, that they're going to win 8 or 9 games a year. Ole Miss has been a whole lot more of a roller coaster, but they've had some highs that – you wouldn't have thought, remember Ole Miss and Mississippi State were half of the first ever top 4 in the playoff selection. Yeah. And you like Tennessee's dominance existed in a world where that wasn't possible. And now, I just the state of Tennessee doesn't. And we've talked about these reasons before. The state of Tennessee doesn't produce the kind of recruits necessary to sustain the program. Everybody has a 100,000 seat stadium now. Like everybody's on TV every week. Like it used to be, Tennessee was the only team that could say all that stuff. And now, you can watch Appalachian State every week if you want to.
Yeah,
it's not special anymore.
And Appalachian State produces a better brand of football than Tennessee's doing right now.
Yes.
Appalachian State's producing a top 5 defense last season or something like that. So, yeah, something super random like that. It's interesting. That's a great point that you just brought up, Chandler. Something if you didn't mention, I was probably going to mention the fact that other teams in the SEC are adapting to the way the game is played and like how to build a successful program. And Tennessee has not been doing it. What's so interesting to me is that Tennessee is not far removed from 9-win seasons with Butch Jones. And you could criticize Butch Jones all you want, but he was winning 9 games to back-to-back seasons. He wins 9 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is success there, but they were not satisfied with this whole awkward 9 wins sort of thing that they were getting, right? It reminds me, it's just that's how the sport tends to be these days with consistency is not sexy. It's just not.
Right.
And so if you're not pulling off some sort of title, even if it's like one title and then your program's instantly turned to crap for the next 21 years, then that's not enough. Consistent success, people don't underestimate it. They just underestimate it.
Right.
I think that's what's so huge about what, for example, Mississippi State has done. That's what's so huge about what LSU has done. They have some down years, but they rebound quickly in Baton Rouge. They just do.
Well, and the reality is, especially in the SEC West, is that everybody's playing for second place right now.
Right.
Even if you knock Alabama off one year, as long as Saban is there and that machine is rolling the way that it is, you're at best going to be the second best program in the West. But I think hypothetically Saban is mortal and is going to go away at some point.
We don't know this for sure, though.
We don't know this. Still think he has a Lazarus pit, but at some point he's going to go away, and it's going to be these programs that are modeling consistency that are going to be kind of there to fill the void. Even if that doesn't necessarily mean that they go to winning the national championship every year, they're going to go to being, right around the top of the SEC and probably winning the West every now. I mean, there's going to be a vacuum created eventually. And I think it's going to be those teams with that consistency that are going to be able to step up and fill that void. And like you said, there's a ton to be said for that.
Yeah.
I think we've also been kind of numb to these stories of teams that just have a really, quote unquote magical year and win it all. Since 03, we've just had dynasty after dynasty come through and win, 60% of the national championships during their strong years. And
hey, if you go all the way back to the beginning of the BCS, Tennessee's the only anomaly in there.
Right.
You go back to the early 90s, it's the same amount. It's the same teams.
Yeah. I mean, you've had your Florida States, you've had your Florida, you've had USC, Ohio State, Alabama, and now you're looking at Clemson, kind of starting their own thing. So it's really rare that you see, Texas and Vince Young's senior year. They were always good, but they weren't, year in and year out, the favorite to win everything. So it was nice to kind of see them rise up and beat, USC. But that just doesn't really happen anymore,
No.
You've got the same 5 or 6 teams that are always going to be good until their coaches leave.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen.
It's not necessarily different from sport to sport, to be honest. There's always going to be some just shoot, we're watching, the Patriots right now, the best NFL team in the past, in the 2000s,
Yeah.
So it's not out of the ordinary necessarily.
Going on 2 decades, that's insane.
Yeah. It's not, it's not necessarily weird to have the same teams do so well over extended periods of time, but it's much more prominent in college football, it seems like.
Yeah.
You go back to like I mentioned in the BCS era, I was trying to pull up the stats because I had done an entire video essay about this at some point in time. So all the way back to the beginning of college football in the pole era in 1936. So basically quote unquote modern college football, polls that determine titles, and then eventually the AP poll to determine titles, and then eventually the BCS and all of that. You go all the way back. The vast majority of the titles are claimed by only 20 schools. 71% of titles that have been won since then are shared between only 20 schools out of the like 120 that are eligible for a title.
Yeah.
So like it's just one of those things that you have so many that are eligible, so few can claim them. The fact that someone's able to do it once is so rare that it makes it stand out more. The fact that consistency is hard to build even off of that. It says a lot that Tennessee was able to win the title in 98, but it's not necessarily shocking from a statistical standpoint that they were not able to capitalize on building a program just off of that one massive area of success. And now they're seeing the difficulties there. And then if you look at the East, Keith, you're our resident East guy. East, our correspondent from the SEC East, even though Chandler's the one that actually lives out in the SEC East territory.
Appalachia.
Thank you, Ro.
Yep. Just kicking it with
gotta-
Mothman over here.
With the Mothman.
But Keith, I mean, you look at the East, and in recent memory, you've got, I mean, shoot, we give Will Muschamp, grief, which I think is well deserved, but they've never lost, or they've never won less than 6 games under Will Muschamp at South Carolina.
Yeah.
There were 6-7 his first year, 9 wins the next year, 7 wins the next year. Kentucky has been to bowl games for a few years in a row. Kentucky. Like, how wild
The
is
football
that?
state.
Yeah.
Right. Historically, football school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kentucky's been to 3 straight bowl games now. So you look at the way the East is shaping up these days and how Kentucky is a more consistent team than Tennessee is. I mean, do you see the East landscape changing anytime soon to allow Tennessee any room to become like where at least a consistent team, not even a super successful, but just consistent?
I mean, and like this is true for any college football team. Like, well, except for Missouri, like 5 years ago, where they just came in, and because the East was so bad, they just stumbled into an SEC championship game 2 years in a row.
Right. Yeah, that was one of the strangest things.
Yeah, but like teams generally aren't just going to get bad, and by sheer luck, you just stumble into a top spot. Like you have to get better and take those spots. And Kentucky is a prime example of that. Like they've been getting better and better and better. And then last year, like the stars aligned, and they had a like an actual really good defense and got into second in the East. Like
Yep.
they took that, and Tennessee seems to be going the opposite direction.
Not to mention the fact that like you have to have a level of consistency in how the program is run to go along with that. And you had those few years with like Butch Jones doing well, and especially Butch Jones having really good recruiting classes by how recruiting rankings tend to go. And then all of that consistency going to poo-poo, after a few years anyway. So like, yeah, there's a lot that goes into building a successful program, and
yeah,
none of it seems to be happening in Knoxville.
I can't remember who said it, but I was on Twitter yesterday, and they were talking about just like we made fun of it a lot, but like the process like the Tennessee fans went through in basically making sure that like Greg Schiano did not get hired, and like drove their AD out of town and had this huge like upheaval in their athletic world period, but specifically in football. And now like this is what they work so hard for.
Yeah.
Like it's your fault, fellas.
This is it.
I think that Tennessee fans will not rest until they hire Mike Leach. That's their only saving grace.
They were too good for him. Their fan base
they
was
want?
too good for him.
Yeah.
They want Gruden.
Yeah.
Every
That's
year
right.
it's Gruden. And
Gruden.
Didn't realize this,
and
but
they see the just absolute clown show that follows Gruden everywhere he goes, and every time their job comes open, it's like we got Gruden. Gruden was at the Rocky Top Grill eating a steak last night before the game. He's gonna come. Like I saw Fulmer on the
Yeah, I'd take Jay Gruden in a heartbeat. Jay Gruden seems to be doing well for himself.
Yeah, but John
I didn't know
Gruden, he talks football, you know. He talks like an old ball coach, just like we all love, you know. He's terrible at play calling, but love the way he talks.
Gruden has not coached in college football since the 1980s.
Yep.
Which I hope they get him, because when he's a failure, like at some point, we talked about this at church this morning. At some point, you have to look in the mirror and realize the problem is you. like you know, and I mean, like it's the like Alabama did this before they hired Saban. They had to take stock of who they were as a program and say, Are we good with what we are now, or do we want to get back to where we were winning championships? And then they had to go and make a bunch of really, really difficult changes. I mean, Saban made a bunch of people mad when he got there. And the next year they're like, who cares? We won 11 games, and then I think in 3 years they'd won a national title.
Right.
But it's just not Tennessee. It's just not them anymore.
No. They need somebody who can connect with the hillbillies and those fancy Nashville people. Who's that going to be? It's got to be John Gruden. You're right. Right.
Or just somebody like Saban, just to tell all of them to get bent and do what he wants.
Yeah.
Do you remember that lady who was standing at the plane whenever Saban got off when they first got hired, and she was so drunk, and she said, "Nick Saban, we love you!" Woo!
Yep.
That's what Tennessee longs for. They got the drunken lady part down. They just need that.
Like, they have those people. They light furniture on fire in the Beamer Stadium.
Or, as in the case of the Georgia State week, they light the Vol Navy on fire and it sinks in the river.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like, if that's not like foreboding, then I don't know what is. You know, like you don't come back from your like biggest, most unique symbol burning and sinking. You just don't. You don't come back.
Yeah, that was definitely a very clear harbinger.
Oh man. All right, let's shift to a more positive tone, of more positive subject here. A team that is doing quite well right now, and that is the LSU, the Louisiana State University Fighting Tigers, commonly known as ELLASHU, LSU. They were able to pull off a massive victory in the national spotlight, in hostile territory, with Matthew McConaughey breathing down their necks. They're able to pull it all off. And not only that, they did so with what I had to text to you guys, I think is probably, now that all of the Ole Miss nasty wideouts are gone, the best receiving core in the SEC, which is weird to say for LSU. Are you kidding me? So they're able to do all of that, looking successful now, being a guy that doesn't like preseason polls. The question comes to mind of, like, based off of current performance, is LSU right now performing the best of any team in the country? That's what we have to actually grapple with concerning the Fighting Tigers down in Baton Rouge right now. Roma, jump to you to start this one off. But this particular LSU versus Texas game that happened on Saturday night in prime time, a thrilling game, really entertaining game, really entertaining. High scoring, which could be indicative of A, modern football being high scoring, or B, bad defenses. It's hard to tell right now early in the season. But do you think that this says more about LSU, or do you think it says more about Texas, Ro?
Gotta be LSU. They finally, Gunslinger Joe Burrow is playing lights out. He looks amazing. He looked amazing that game. Plus, I mean, that's like, I don't know. It's just such a classic college football game too. Like, Texas versus LSU. It's basically DBU versus DBU. Like, I think that's.
Keith would question you on that one, though. I don't know if you caught up with our group text, but Keith would question you.
No, I didn't.
Except that one school is actually DBU, and the school in Texas just claims to be.
Well, they both have great players. It's just that
it's a different kind of DB.
Yeah, right. I thought it was a great game. It was just a crazy good game. It looked. That's one of those games where you watch on TV where it's like, man, that one would be fun to be at, regardless of. I wouldn't care for either one of those teams to win. I would hope they all get injured on both sides of the ball, but it would be fun to be there. It looked like a great time. I will say, Joe Burrow looks to be the real deal this year. I don't know what those LSU receivers are doing, but they look pretty good. So yes, I think it's pretty fair to say, LSU is number one, but that's only because obviously Alabama, UGA have not really faced a whole lot of competition up to yet. So LSU's performing the best. I mean,
are you dissing New Mexico State, man?
I'm not dissing them so much as I'm discounting them. So, that's my take on it. I both teams looked much improved, especially Texas. Texas football's back, baby! Woo! 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 Longhorns, yeah, man. Yeah, they got Professor Matthew McConaughey down there on the sidelines walking them things, just rubbing his boogers together. And then his little Lincoln commercials, just Universe is calling, baby. Come on now, Longhorns.
Driving a Lincoln since before I was getting paid to do so. Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey.
All right.
Dude, Lincoln lawyer, Lincoln cars, Abraham Lincoln. The guy's got it all, man.
Abraham Lincoln. All right, sure. Why not? Yeah, as mentioned, Joe Burrow, he looked good. The LSU wide receivers, they got young guys. Keith and I had talked about them in our LSU preview, but two guys in particular, Terrace Marshall and Jamar Chase. Those two guys, I want to say just sophomores, really stepping up, rising to the occasion as wide receivers. Of course, you got the slightly more experienced Justin Jefferson, who pretty much was their only real receiving threat on a consistent level last year. He had a great game as well. Pulling up the box score right now, but their receiving stats were Jefferson, 9 receptions for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns.
This game was ridiculous.
So ridiculous. Chase, 8 receptions, 147 on yardage, and Marshall, 6 receptions, 123 and 1 touchdown. Those 3 guys all over 120 yards apiece. Heck of a performance. Chandler, what's your take on LSU's that revamped offense of theirs?
Well, I think so the way they're running the offense right now fits what Joe Burrow does well, and what they did last year never really seemed to. Because I mean, Burrow's not a drop back passer, and I mean, I think you see the same thing, like when you look at this podcast's favorite quarterback and the greatest quarterback to ever live. Of course, I'm talking about Justin Fields.
Yep.
Fields at Georgia never fit their offense. Well, he's killing it at Ohio State in part because they play in the Big Ten and the Big Ten sucks. But the other, But the other part is they're doing stuff that works for him, and it seems like that's what LSU is doing with Joe Burrow right now. He's also got, like we said, these amazing receivers to throw to. He's got a good running game backing him up, and so, I mean, if they maintain the wide openness of the offense that they've got going right now, then I think they can. I think they can win the SEC. The caveat is we're not going to know how good Texas is for a long time. Because I just looked at their schedule and it's really bad.
Okay.
I mean, they just lost to LSU. They've got Rice, Oklahoma State, West Virginia. So that's 3, 2 awful teams, and I don't know what Oklahoma State is. Then they've got Oklahoma. Then they play Kansas, TCU, Kansas State, Iowa State. Baylor might be good, and then Texas Tech. So. Like they don't play anybody, and we're not going to know at all how good Texas is. But LSU went and played in a tough place to win and won and looked really good doing it. So I mean, especially with the injuries, like if Alabama has any more injuries kind of piling up on defense like they've had already,
Injuries meaning players leaving early for the NFL. The worst thing that can happen to a team.
Yes, obviously terrible. Forget those ACLs. It's fine. Who cares?
Well, the only weak link in LSU thus far is that their coach is Ed Ogeron. I mean, like, they have the talent everywhere, and Ed O is kind of the only reason why I would doubt them to be better than Alabama.
But it seems like, and we'll see what happens when things start going tough, if stuff gets tough for him. But it seems like Ogeron has had the sense to just stay out of the way. Let the offense run the way it wants, and you go recruit and do your y'all get fired up. Yeah, exactly.
But Chandler, you of all people know that one Ed O cannot and will not stay out of the way.
I agree. I mean, I completely agree, but I theoretically believe people can change.
Yeah, I think people can change like their decisions and like character and stuff, but like when it comes to football coaches, not so much.
Yeah, well,
I disagree. I'm fully on board with Edo. I think he's turned into a good coach. I see no reason to believe otherwise at this point.
Since he left Ole Miss, he did a really good job as an interim at USC, and then again a really good job as the interim at LSU, and now has had. This is his third full season as the head coach there.
Second full season, I think.
Second full season. He like coached an entire year as an interim or something like that. It was really weird.
But
they fired Miles after like week 2.
Yeah, but he's done a really good job there since he took over. So I don't.
Now, to what you're saying, Chandler, he definitely did. He's obviously relying on his coordinators a lot.
He's not the same guy he was at Ole Miss. He's not even the same guy, honestly, that I think he was last year because I think he had, or whenever it was, like whenever the whole Matt Canada debacle happened, like he just never fully trusted Canada. But now that he's got a guy that it seems like he can trust, I mean, again, if they get some pressure put on them, if it comes down to crunch time, we'll see what happens. But I think so far it's been a good sign that they've talked about opening the offense up, and they have opened the offense up.
Yeah, exactly. Also, as a side note, you talk about like how important schemes and like the systems getting a quarterback into the right system, not getting a quarterback fit system, but getting a quarterback into the right system. I mean, look at Jalen Hurts going out to Oklahoma, and obviously, like Houston and South Dakota have not necessarily been the toughest opponents, but I still think if Alabama had gone up against Houston and South Dakota when Hurts was their quarterback, he would not be putting up the numbers that he was putting up.
Right.
You're probably right.
It's just that sort of, especially because Hurts in Alabama had to deal with the constant, berating that he'd get from his coach, and the constant, we need Tua in there instead of you. We're more excited about him than you sort of mentality that was going on.
I would hate to play for Nick Saban. Like, I would be stressed out 24/7.
Yeah. That's just because you're just not a winner, Keith.
That's true.
Yeah. So one thing that does need to be addressed, though, is, of course, like the score of the ball game and how many points are being thrown around on there in this LSU and Texas game. Keith, Texas took advantage of a few plays in particular in which, like, LSU's best defenders, most standout defenders so far, or going into the season, Grant Delpit and Michael Divinity, the greatest last name in the SEC right now, I think. Those guys were actually out for a little period of time, and that was during that period of time in which Texas really took advantage of their absence and scored some of the points to really put themselves back in the game. When you look at everything surrounding all of that, the defensive performance and everything there, do you think the fact that so many points were scored is a troubling sign? Because there's some people that are going to look at it and say, okay, maybe they scored a lot of points, but clearly there's no defense there, and they'll never have any success because of that. I mean, what's your take on it, Keith?
Yeah, if I'm LSU fans, I wouldn't be too worried about the score. If you look at the score, they Texas caught up in the score as more and more LSU players went down. So, as you said, they were taking advantage of the personnel on the field. Also, Texas has a really good quarterback and really good wide receivers, and the SEC just doesn't play that type of offense a whole lot. So I wouldn't be worried about it. It's a big game, two good teams. Injuries happen, and I wouldn't be worried about it.
So the general consensus here, and we're curious what you think as well, listener, but the general consensus here is that after a couple of weeks, it's seeming like LSU is the real deal this year. We were, of course, wondering whether they'd be able to keep it going after last year's success, surprising success, and whether or not they'd be able to really keep it going, and what would be the outcome of the offensive changes, all that sort of stuff. So far, seems to be working out. If you're a follower of ours on Twitter, if you like our Facebook page, all of that stuff, ROTC Sports, running out the clock, you can find it pretty easily. It's got the same little green logo on there. Leave us a comment. Leave us your thoughts on the current state of the program, or in particular that matchup between LSU and Texas. Because I think Texas looked like a good team, and it is going to be tough to tell exactly how good, but it looked like two good teams playing a really good game, and we got to enjoy it in week 2, and that's pretty cool that we got to see it pretty early on in the season. That will come back to bite me in like 7 weeks when suddenly both teams have collapsed and like they're absolute garbage, and I'm over here going, "They're looking like it's so good." So,
hey, I think we have a legit hope of a very high scoring and fun to watch LSU Alabama game,
right?
And not a good Lord, I hope not. But you're also probably right. but we at least have the hope for it.
I hope so.
Hope is our biggest enemy. Let's be honest here.
That's probably true.
Rebellions are built on hope. All right, let's go ahead.
You should remove yourself for that.
I really should. That was my least favorite part of what was otherwise a phenomenal movie. All right, let's move on to our final segment, I guess, our prediction side of things here. Week 2. Looking at it, everything's still pretty even through the first couple of weeks of predictions. Week 2, almost everyone had the same scores. 13 points for Chandler, Keith, and Rowe. I was the only one that had 14 correct predictions.
Damn.
I missed one prediction on the week in that I predicted West Virginia over Missouri. Otherwise, I would have had a clean 15 correct. Bless you, Rowe. My goodness.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. Oh, my God.
What did the rest
15.
of us? What did the rest of us miss?
Let's see. Almost everyone. Most of you picked Tennessee over BYU. I was the only one that picked BYU. Rowe and I picked Millsaps over Belhaven in our Division 3 random prediction, and Millsaps did pull that one out. However, Belhaven cut it a little bit closer at the end.
Gang.
And Rowe picked Arkansas over Ole Miss.
Dang it.
And otherwise, so Rowe missed Tennessee and Arkansas. Everyone else missed. You and Keith both missed Tennessee and Belhaven. So there you go. That's how we rolled up on that one. However, that means that everyone is just about still even off of the first 2 weeks with 22 predictions apiece between me, Chandler, and Rowe. Keith lagging far behind with only 21 correct predictions. Rough start, Keith. Rough start.
Rough year already.
Let's jump into the scores here, or the predictions here. I mean, Keith, you are our resident odds maker. You were explaining beforehand that for whatever reason, this week does not seem to have too many odds already posted as of the recording of this episode, Sunday night. Is that the case?
Correct.
Well, we're just going to have to deal with it. You tell me when we've got something to say as far as the spread, and if we don't. Okay, fair enough. Here we go. We're going to start things off by looking at Arkansas State going up against Georgia in Athens.
Georgia is a 33-point favorite.
Oof. All right, 33. Chandler, lead us off.
I mean, who cares? Georgia's going to win.
like
Georgia freaking play somebody. Like I don't. I'm bothered. I'm bothered by that.
Bothered by the spread?
No, just the fact that they haven't played anybody.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be week 4 before they play anybody.
Yep. Let's go ahead and move down to let's try to get some of the not playing anybody predictions out of the way. Chattanooga and Tennessee. Could this be Tennessee's first victory of the season? Is there a spread for this one, Keith?
There's no spread on this.
All right. Chandler, you think Tennessee actually wins again?
Vegas is terrified.
Yeah.
I mean, Tennessee wins. Like, let me specify: Tennessee at Knoxville wins.
Right.
I don't know.
You don't necessarily have to specify. Chattanooga does not go by UT Chattanooga anymore.
Or they just go by Chattanooga.
They just go by Chattanooga.
Okay.
UT Martin still goes by UT Martin, like University of Tennessee at Martin, but Chattanooga does not anymore. They're just the Chattanooga.
People are starting to separate themselves from UT football.
Yeah.
Right. Like
We all do it.
I wouldn't feel confident saying that Tennessee would beat Carson Newman right now.
Right.
Oh gosh. I mean,
Yeah, state rivalry.
Tennessee's going to win, but man, ugh.
Yep. Keith, you picking UT as well?
Yeah, I mean, they got to pick up a W at some point, right?
Yep. Ro, how about you?
Let's go UT, man. Let's do it. Let's go Bulls.
Yep.
Just do it and be legends.
Yep. No one's feeling great about it, but we kind of feel like we have to pick it anyway.
Let's go the Bulls.
I'm going UT, but hoping for an upset.
Absolutely. Why not?
Because UT Twitter would be amazing.
Everybody thought that Tennessee was going to be sitting at 3-0 and kind of feeling themselves right now, and they're not.
3-0 through the first 2 games of the season. Lamar at Texas A&M. Does anyone want to take a guess as to where Lamar is?
Brooklyn.
It's in Texas.
It's in Austin, Texas.
Lamar Jackson University.
All right. So we're all pretty much saying it's in Texas, aside from Keith, who claims that it's in Baltimore. Specifically, I'll find this. I assume there's no reason for it. I remember there being a basketball player that made it to the NBA from Lamar not long ago, and I'm trying to remember what his name was. He didn't last for very long, but anyway.
There's a private school in Mississippi called Lamar.
Sure. But that was not him. No, you know what? I'm thinking of someone. I forget his name. Anyway.
Lamar Odom?
That was it. That was totally it. Yeah, I'm thinking of a guy named Lamar. No, Lamar's in Beaumont, Texas. Chandler, Texas A&M. Hey, you know what? Who even cares? We all picking A&M on this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, there we go. Northwestern State and LSU. Any reason that we are not picking LSU?
Mm-mm.
No.
Yep. Northwestern State. Does anyone know where Northwestern State is, by the way?
Louisiana?
Northwestern Louisiana.
It is in Natchitoches. Oh, well, I slurred that one too much. Right, sorry. Apologies to the state of Louisiana. Southeast Missouri State at Missouri. Heated in-state rivalry here. What are we thinking on this one, guys?
Missouri.
Cat.
Missouri.
Keith, did you just say cat?
I'm pretty sure it was plural, but it might have been singular. I don't really know.
Okay, all right. I assume that means Missouri.
Yep.
Okay, a couple of not super dynamic matchups, but a little bit better or more respectable teams than Northwestern State from Natchitoches, Louisiana. We have Southeast Louisiana at Ole Miss. This is Southeast. I've actually been to Southeast campus before. Chandler?
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is going to win. It's just another week to kind of polish up. I mean, this is a terrible week of games for everybody.
Yeah,
seriously.
There's only one kind of interesting one.
Yeah.
Uh, Everyone picking Ole Miss on this one? Is this another unanimous one as well?
Hotty toddy, gosh almighty, flim flam.
Bear fins.
Bear fins forever. Colorado State at Arkansas. This one I think could be interesting considering Arkansas is still pretty bad.
Ugh.
And I feel like these two teams played last year. I could have that
you're
wrong.
right.
10-point
Could have
favorite.
that wrong. There any spread on this one, Keith?
Yep, Arkansas is a 10-point favorite.
All right, Arkansas favored by 10. Chandler, you think they
Man,
win this game?
I am blanking on his name. Arkansas's got a really good running back. Arkansas's got two really good running backs.
Akeem the Dream Boyd
Darren McFadden.
It's
and Devwah Whaley?
It's Raheem Boyd, isn't it?
Yes. Is that
yeah,
not what I said?
I thought
think
you said Akeem.
Oh, did I say Akeem? I probably did. Rakeem the Dream Boyd and Devwah Whaley.
Yeah,
I thought it was pronounced Peyton Hillis.
That's it. Akeem the Dream, Peyton Hillis, and Devwah Whaley.
That sounds more natural.
I mean, Arkansas is terrible, like really bad. Like Arkansas is so bad that Ole Miss tried to make the game a typical Ole Miss Arkansas game by just doing crazy stuff like multiple times. And Arkansas was like, "No, we're not doing it this year.
Yeah, we're not having it, man."
We're not going to give you satisfaction this year, fellas.
I haven't seen Colorado State yet this year. I'm assuming that they're bad.
They're also bad.
So, I mean, give me Arkansas, but I feel really bad about it.
I mean, they're so bad that people have watched Arkansas play 2 games and made them a favorite in this game.
Right.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Keith, you agree with that one as well?
Hogs.
Ro, how about you?
I picked them last week. Not going to stop now. Pig Sue.
Ro's new favorite team. Yeah, I mean, I want to be able to predict Colorado State, but I just looked at their schedule so far, and they got whomped down on by in-state rival Colorado at the beginning of the year, and then gave up 13 points to Western Illinois. So, if Arkansas plays this halfway smart, they'll win it. So that's about it there.
How about the Buffs right now, though?
Yeah. As it turns out, Colorado might not be too bad.
No, yeah, Colorado's looking all right.
Or hypothetically, Nebraska just still sucks.
Sure, there is that.
A little bit of both.
Was Colorado, was that Rocket Ishmael who played for Colorado, or did I get that wrong? Doesn't matter.
I'll Google it.
Couldn't tell you.
I'll look it up real quick. Doesn't matter.
Don't know
We'll
who
keep
that
going.
is.
No, I'm such an idiot. He played at Notre Dame. Who was at Colorado? Doesn't matter.
Cordell Stewart.
Cordell Stewart. Yeah, Cordell Stewart was there. Anyway, Kent State at Auburn. This is Auburn's definite toughest opponent so far this year. No,
As it turns out, this is one of the games that does have a line,
yeah,
and it's Auburn by 35.
35. Good grief, Kent State. Anytime that anyone thinks Auburn's going to drop 35 points on a team in general, much less win by that much, you know that team's pretty bad.
That's a stretch, saying that Auburn's going to score 35 points.
Is this a unanimous Auburn prediction across the board here from the staff?
Yeah, it's a unanimous Auburn pick. It's got to be, but I didn't realize that they only beat Tulane 24-6.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And then they
Not
go and say
good.
that they're going to be a 35-point favorite.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Who else we got? We got Kansas State at Mississippi State. A rematch of last year out there in Manhattan. Now Manhattan gets to come to Starkville. Is there a line on this one, Keith?
No. Starkville, the Manhattan, Kansas of Mississippi.
Exactly. I wonder why there's no line on it.
Probably because of the player suspensions.
Oh yeah, suspensions.
And the injury to
I don't think. Yeah, they haven't said anything official about Tommy Stevens, I guess, but
It's Stevens and Hill, I guess.
no, they didn't have to say anything about Hill. He played the rest of the game.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yep.
I
All right.
got a very panicked text message from a mutual friend. Our season's over, Tommy. Colin Hill's out. It's like, okay. I didn't watch any game.
It would have been if he was out. So anyway, Kansas State, Mississippi State, no line on this one yet. We can probably assume Mississippi State is the favorite, considering I believe that the polls came out this evening, and my brother has told me that Mississippi State climbed back into the top 25 for whatever reason. So, anyway, who are we picking?
Woo!
What happens when you beat up on USM?
On the mustard bustards.
Mustard bustards.
Yeah, give me the dogs.
Yeah, I mean, I think State should win. I think the interesting thing to see, I mean, Kansas State has played two bad teams. They played Nicholls State and maybe Bowling Green, but they put up a ton of points in both. And State has shown in their first couple of games, at least in the first game, they give up 13 against Southern. Was that what I saw?
It was 15. Southern went for 2 to try to cover the spread.
I got you.
Pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, State might give up some points, and I don't, Kansas State scored 103 points in their first 2 games, and I don't think Bill Snyder scored 103 points in 28 years of coaching.
Right.
He was coaching.
So it's definitely a new look Kansas State, but I mean, I think State wins, but maybe Kansas State can really test their defense a little bit more, but ultimately lose.
Yeah, State is ranked 23rd in the coaches poll.
Coaches poll specific. Yeah, I was just looking that up myself. Ro, what's your pick here?
Oh, come on now. Don't even ask. Don't insult
right.
me.
My
Gotta
bad.
go with my
you're going
bull
Kansas State.
pups.
I was about to say, I forgot how big of a Kansas State fan you were.
Oh, blasphemy. Hurts my soul to hear that. No, I am picking Mississippi State only because we beat them 31-10 last year. So
In a Kylan Hill breakout game.
yeah, and I kind of even if Tommy is gone or here, it's going to be the Kylan Hill show. So I expect State to beat whatever spread they got and score 1,000 points. So go Bulldogs.
Sounds good. Mississippi State, 1,000 points this weekend. You heard it here first. We've got a fairly
I had the interns run the numbers on that, and they said that that's good.
Yeah, it's a good amount of points.
If that were to come to pass.
Yep, they would have a pretty good chance at winning if they were able to do that. So, this matchup here could be interesting. Probably won't be. Alabama and South Carolina. Alabama's first real opponent on the season. We got a spread on this one, Keith.
Alabama is a 25.5 point favorite.
Yikes, 25.5. Chandler, what's your take here?
I mean, there's no way to pick up against Alabama at this point. I mean, I think the Helinski start makes it interesting because I think Alabama does tend to struggle with strong quarterbacks, but he is making his first SEC start against Alabama. So, yeah, good luck, bud.
Yeah, they did say that Jake Bentley's done for the year.
Wow.
That's sad.
That is sad.
It is.
Even more sad after Saturday.
So, Keith, who's your pick here, or what's your assessment of it? I can assume who your pick is.
Alabama.
All right, Ro, same there.
Yeah, roll Tide, Paul.
Yep, I could see South Carolina scoring some points because it seems like Bama's defense isn't as dynamic, but
it'll be one of those classic Tennessee Bama games where Tennessee keeps it close for a half and then Alabama wakes up.
Is it also one of those classic Tennessee Alabama games where South Carolina's wearing Tennessee jerseys?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to say that it's like that, but for, South Carolina. Anyway, whatever. I'm over this.
Final SEC matchup is the one that will probably actually be somewhat interesting to watch this weekend. Maybe the only one. Dan Mullen in Florida trying to get revenge on Kentucky for his first SEC loss last season. Kentucky trying to claim that they are still a respectable opponent in the SEC East. Florida, Kentucky. Keith, is there a spread on this thing?
Florida is a 8.5-point favorite.
Ooh, 8.5. That's a real sexy spread right there. Chandler, what you got?
Oh man, Florida should win. I think Florida will win, but I can't erase that offensive line performance against Miami from my head and to see how much Miami kind of struggled with North Carolina. And I think Kentucky still has a good defense, maybe.
I mean, they didn't look any better against UT Martin in the run game. Anyway.
Yeah. So, I don't know. What the heck? I'm picking Kentucky. Kentucky's going to win.
Ooh, he's mixing it up. Keith, I assume you're going to go Gators on this one.
Yep.
Ro, what about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna play it safe here and pick the old Gators to beat old Kentucky.
Old Kentucky Shark.
Gotta restart the streak.
Got to restart. Streak's got to end. Streak's got to start again. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Florida on this one. I just haven't seen enough out of Kentucky to make me believe that they are the the remnants of the same team as last year. Their offense is probably better. At least it has been so far. So, all right, as always, we always predict Florida State's matchup for this for the week. We also always predict one random game. Let's get into those two real quick to round things out here on the episode. Florida State has to play in Scott Stadium, Charlottesville, Virginia, against the Virginia Mountaineers. Right? Is that them? That sounds right.
The Cavaliers?
Yeah.
The Mountain Rears.
Yeah, the Mountain Rears of Virginia. Florida State, Virginia. Keith, any spread here?
Florida State is a 7.5-point dog.
Okay. I wish you hadn't let it off like that. I'm just typing as you say it. So I'm like, FSU, 7.5. Nope, I got to delete it now. I got to delete it now. So
Got to keep your toes, man.
All right. So Virginia favored in this matchup. Chandler, you going with the Mountain Vliers?
Wahoo's, baby.
Who is that?
Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I didn't
who?
know that either. The who?
Yeah. So Horton here's a who. Chandler picked Horton here's a who. Keith, what's your favorite Dr. Seuss story?
Yeah, Dr. Seuss also. Green eggs and ham.
He got it. Ro?
The who, I guess. Peter Frampton, I really like the way that he plays that guitar. I woke up in a Soho where policeman knew my name. Yeah, the who.
Wait, was Peter Frampton in the Who?
No, definitely not. It's Pete Townsend.
Oh man, you're right. God, dude, I don't know music, man.
Wait, have none of y'all ever heard Virginia is referred to as the Wahoos before?
Never in my life, dude. That's a fish.
I thought that was I know it's a fish. I thought it was like a common thing.
I have no clue.
You just made it up right now.
I didn't
Yeah.
make it up. I felt so bad of what I had said that I actually looked it up.
Man, I feel equally as bad.
You
for
should.
getting Peter Frampton and Pete Townsend confused.
You really should.
Yeah, your
It's
mistake is
embarrassing.
more egregious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really embarrassing.
Yep. Our final matchup that we're going to predict tonight on this episode is a matchup that SB Nation dubbed El Assico a few years ago. Iowa versus Iowa State. Keith, tell us.
This is my favorite rivalry game.
It is. It's such a good
El
one.
Assico.
Because it's always just a terrible game. What we got in this one, man?
It's a bar fight in the pitch black. Iowa State is a 1-point favorite.
Iowa State is favorited?
Yep. Cyclones, baby.
All right. Iowa's ranked.
Didn't stop them last year from losing.
That's true. I think that's one of the things that SB Nation pointed out when they dubbed the match, or they matchup when they dubbed it, is because it never goes the way it's supposed to.
Nope,
So
never. Absolutely.
Iowa State favored over rival Iowa. Chandler, lead us off here. You got any more weird nicknames for fan bases?
I have no more weird nicknames. I just have an undying faith and trust in Kirk Ferentz.
Mm.
So let's go Hawkeyes.
Hawk guy himself. All right, Keith.
I'm just thinking of a Marvel superhero that's just a Hawk guy. He has no special powers. He's just unfortunately a Hawk man that's just in like some slacks and a polo.
So like it's basically just actual Hawkeye.
I highly recommend to you non-nerds that you follow my lead and read a Hawkeye series by Matt Fraction, illustrated by David Asia, where he gets called Hawk Guy in it the entire time, and it's one of the best comic series I've ever read in my life, bar none.
Hey, I graduated high school, so I don't ever have to deal with fractions again.
All right, Chandler's
I
gone.
know what's happening. I
Yep.
could feel it. I felt
He's out.
it.
He's out.
It.
Keith, who you picking in Elastico? Let's get this thing done.
Cyclones.
All right, Ro.
Yeah, man. Let's go clones. I'm all for clones, dude.
Battle. Yep, it's the Clone War.
Battle of the stem cell. Let's do it.
Well, in order to split the room on this one, and for no other reason, I'm 100% agreeing with Chandler and going with Iowa.
With the Hawk guys.
The Hawk guys. Love it. Love Jeremy Renner. We're done with this episode. I'm about to hang up this call here and listen to open up the Jeremy Renner app and listen to some Jeremy Renner for the rest of my night. Gentlemen, I would say thank you for coming onto this episode, but we all know I hated every second of being here with you.
This dental chair is very uncomfortable.
No.
All right. Whoa.
Why are you? What happened?
I'm just clicking different buttons. All right. Thanks for listening to
Everybody
this
hung up the
episode of Running Out the Clock. Listener, I love you. Everyone else on this episode, I hate you so much.
Man.
Hawk guy saving the day.
Can you take me higher?